everything. Rap, cuarteto, Villa Michela. I listen to Gila. That's what I do. But yeah, I actually was born in San Salvador, El Salvador. Have you heard of El Salvador? You have, really? Wow, this is happening like more frequently. When I came to Argentina, because I like to suffer, nobody knew what that was. I can translate for myself. Que yo soy de El Salvador, me gusta sufrir, por eso vivo en la Argentina. And like I've been in Buenos Aires for the last year. This is my first time in Tandil. Thank you. And I just came back to Argentina from visiting my family in El Salvador. I haven't seen them in about 6 years. And being from my family reminded me of something. You know, my family took me to the US when I was 2. So we could have a better life, which means they wanted me to make money. And being back in El Salvador, I realized money is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to have the money and that nobody knows. Like, another thing about my family is I got to see my aunts and uncles. And one thing that was really interesting with that is like, if any of you have a big family, you don't need a scale to know how much you weigh. Because they're gonna look at you and be like, hey, weren't you thinner last time? And that's what my aunties did. But I have one auntie that I really like because she has dementia. So that means she doesn't remember that I was thinner last time. She doesn't remember who I am, you know? So that was really nice. And then there's also just the fact that like, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So Washington, hey, West Coast, Best Coast. And everybody always asks me, you know, when I moved to Buenos Aires, they're like, hey, how was it? How was it living in LA? What was it like to be raised in California? And I have to remind them that, like, I'm an immigrant, you know? And that means it's not like there was a bunch of paparazzi over there. Sorry, I have ADHD. I don't know what they're talking about, but if there's some good like gossip, I'm gonna tell you all. But everybody was like, so what was it like growing up in Los Angeles? You know, did you meet any celebrities? You know, is it really paved with gold? But that's not the way things were. In my neighborhood, at 5:45 a.m., I knew what my neighbor did for a living because he would wake up and say, "Tamales, tamales," and that's how I knew I'm poor, and it's time to go to school. Talking about ADHD, so trastorno atención deficiencia, whatever. You're learning English. My translations suck, but ADHD means I don't have good time management. Like I can't pay attention to things, and I had to be diagnosed twice because I didn't pay attention the first time. That was like really hard for me. And then there's also just being an immigrant in the United States. That means I have to deal with a lot of stereotypes. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a brown person, and everybody expects people from the U.S. to be like, to look like Argentinian people. You know, to be white and blonde and maybe taller than I am, and to have like money. But I'm here. You can see, no. And that also means that, like, being from El Salvador, I was expected to be a gangster, you know, an evil gangster that like kills people. Nowadays, I am expected to have Bitcoin. And thank you. And I think you could see, I'll let you clap. Based on this outfit, I am not a gangster. I don't have the money to buy this imaginary money that is Bitcoin. But there's a worse stereotype than that when you're growing up in the United States as an immigrant, and that is all immigrants love to work. Now, this is Argentina, where you have a holiday every other day. I think you know, no one likes to work. And that means that I grew up like with this complex of like being lazy about weird things. I wanted to start the revolution. I wanted to end this stereotype and sit on my ass until the stereotype ended. You know, sleep like 18 hours, like whatever, the revolution, right? Yay. And I started becoming lazy about weird things. I made the choice that even though nobody's ever given me the chance, I will never do cocaine. And you're like, why? I'll tell you. It's because, let's think about cocaine as a drug. You have to know where to buy it, which I don't. Then you have to find the right person to sell you the cocaine, which is a person that can get the cocaine, but isn't so dangerous that they will kill you. Or you try to buy the cocaine, but then after you pay for it and do whatever it is you need to do, you have to take the cocaine, get like a razor, you know, put it on a surface and go like this until you grind the cocaine into a powder that you can then take a straw, stick it up your nose, and go. And it makes me think, not only is this like really hard to do for someone like me, but also I'm not like a model or a rock star. Because let's think, models and rock stars are the only people who look good while they're going like this. And yeah, that's just not me, right? Having ADHD also means that like I try to be a good friend, but it's really hard. Okay, like I have this one friend who called me one day in Buenos Aires, and she goes, "Che, boluda, vos no sabés." And I was like, "No, I don't know." And she starts telling me her man cheated on her, and she discovered it. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna take wine, like lots of wine, to the house." So I'm there with all the wine I could find. And then she starts talking, you know, I'm pouring the wine, and she goes, "It's just that, look, I saw his bank statements, and like, he went to 2 restaurants and bought 2 meals, right? And then I saw that like, on weekends, he would say he has work, but he was going over there, like all the typical signs of a cheater. But all I kept thinking is, wow, he can manage his time." And then she goes, "I don't know like how he could do this, like it's like he never slept." And I was like, he likes to work. Yeah, like, it's a lot of work dating one person. Imagine 2, or I think he was cheating on her with like 4 people, and I was like, man, this asshole likes to work. I grew up in a really religious family, you know, and they were very evangelical Christians. And so I don't know if anybody here grew up religious, but basically what it means is like, I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons because apparently Bart and Homer were gonna take me to Satan. But also I had to go to church all the time. And because I was raised in a Christian house, I didn't know that like people were born not Christians, right? So when I started getting older, I met people who converted to Christianity. And I would listen to them and be like, wait a minute, that you could do that? You don't have to be a Christian? And then I would listen like, yes, and Jesus and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, you were free. And you came and joined all of this. But then I started realizing that some people, were like not raised Christian, right? When they became Christian, they realized it sucks, bro. They have this thing at churches called a testimony. Basically, it means like they give you a microphone and you're supposed to talk about the miracles that Jesus did in your life. But then I realized some of these people were not happy with what Jesus was doing in their lives. One guy one time stood up and, just imagine, he stands up like this and he goes, hey everyone, my name is Marcus, and before I had Jesus in my life, I was gangbanging, I was selling dope, I was with all the bitches that I wanted, I fucked all the time, and now I have Jesus in my life. And the other day, Mark, my ex-drug dealer, who by the way has good weed, and his number is 589-4706. He goes, if you buy 2 joints, I give you 1 free. But because I have Jesus in my life, I told Marcus, I am not gonna take this bad weed, even if it's free, because not only do I have Jesus in my life, I have standards for weed.
That's good.
Yes. Because I was an immigrant, I was separated from my family for a really long time. It took me 22 years to become a U.S. citizen, and a lot of my family never got their visas to visit me in the United States. So the way that I would know who was doing what, who stole somebody's husband or something, was we would sit down and pray, right? And then my aunties that would come and visit from El Salvador, they would start praying for the food and be like, Lord, bless this meal, bless this drink, bless Brenda, help her find a boyfriend that isn't married and has children. And I didn't want these prayers to end. I didn't know these people, but I'd be like, what? Brenda did what? And then, so that's how I knew what was happening in the family, and that even though we were religious, we weren't really, During the pandemic, you all remember the pandemic, right? I know, right? You want to forget it, that's cool. But during the pandemic, when they shut things down, my family on Sundays would want to go to online church, right? Because they wanted to bring Jesus into the house. So on Sundays, we would wake up like this, right? We were all asleep, and my mom didn't know how to use the Xbox in the living room. So she would be like, hey, put Jesus on the Xbox! And my brother would be like, hey, Jesus is so powerful, let him turn on the Xbox. And she would be like, no, you turn it on! And because she wanted my brother to do this, and I'm the oldest sister, and he wouldn't put Jesus on the Xbox, I had to put Jesus on the Xbox. Turn on online church. But that's not the worst part. It's not the worst part. Because then we had to watch online church. And I know that pastors are trying to do their job, but when it comes to technology, they need to learn more. You know what I'm saying? So one of these pastors, he stands up and does his sermon at online church, and it was empty, right? So he was already feeling like shit, there's nobody I can scam into giving me money. So he was already depressed looking, but it would be like, hey, I know there's a pandemic, and I know that life is hard, but we're not gonna let this virus stop us. Think about it. When was the last time you Facebook liked Jesus? When was the last time you tweeted the gospel? Well, during this pandemic, I encourage you to TikTok the gospel. Everyone get on that Facebook, get on that Twitter, get on that Tinder. Get on that Grindr. And share the love of Jesus with those who need him most. My grandfather was a comedian, so I'm a third generation comedian. They didn't leave me a house, a car, money, just generational trauma. And, because I got to the US at age 2, my grandfather got his visa when I was 5, so I forgot who he was when, he came over for the first time. And I realized that he was a weird guy, and the way that I knew this is my grandfather loved watching the news. But you know how now we can watch TV wherever, your phone, your watch, your laptop. Back in the day, in the 90s, we had one TV and one remote, which means we had to fight over who would watch what they wanted. Now, after school, I wanted to watch my cartoons, eat a ton of cereal, which in the US has way too much sugar. And I wanted to put more sugar on the cereal so I could watch cartoons, right? But my grandfather wanted to watch the news. Why? Because on the news, it was in Spanish, so it was like, hoy en el inicio 34 se murieron 6,000 personas en la India en un terremoto. And my grandfather would be like, dude, check it out, that's awesome. I'd be like, Grandpa, what? And then there was another one. Hoy en 1954 en Los Ángeles, 16 gringos muertos en un tiroteo. And my grandfather would be like, don't these gringos think they're better than us? But clearly, they're not. Only 16? That wasn't enough for my grandma. Los Angeles has a lot of traffic, which means a lot of traffic accidents. And I lived in one of the most dangerous intersections in the city. So anytime my grandpa heard sirens and that a car had crashed into another car, he would look at me and go, hey, anyway, let's go see the accident. It's gonna be awesome. And I would be like, Grandpa, I am 5. And then he would say, don't worry, some people die when they turn 5. So then, he would go and come back and tell me, and I learned about biology in kindergarten. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But because he was a comedian, before he died, he would tell us, when I die, I don't want you to wear black. I want you to wear colors. I don't want you to cry. I want you to say my jokes. And then it took him 10 years to die. So when he died, I flew to El Salvador. And I wore colors. We all did. There was 200 of us. And we said his jokes. And we had actually a lot of fun at the funeral. He put the fun on the funeral. They got it. And when we got to the cemetery and we had to bury him, everybody else, they were mourning the people who passed away, right? They were wearing black. They were crying like you're supposed to. But we looked crazy in public. We looked happy to be buried my grandpa. And I would like to think that was my grandfather's final joke. All right, everybody, that's my time. I want to say thank you, and please give it up up for Katini.